Hey everybody, this is CAD Roll Hunter. I've got 20 rolls of custom wrapped pennies, Canadian pennies, so we got ourselves a hunt. Hi everybody, this is James here and you're watching my channel CAD Roll Hunter. That's right, we got pennies here. They're not circulating in Canada, but you can still get them if you've got the right bank to go to. All they got to do is say yes. We see some copper pennies from as early as the 60s, the late 60s. I see some 70s and 80s, and then I see some shinier, newer, since those are really shiny looking 1995. So we're looking for errors, varieties. We're looking for anything old, maybe a King George VI. If we found a King George V, that would be super awesome. Maybe some wheat cents. We know we're probably going to find some American pennies in here. So let's dive in and see what we can get. So it didn't take us long to find our first find. We're 4 coins in, and we got a 1959 here. This is going to be a laureate portrait, Queen Elizabeth II. Lots of detail. There's some gunk or some kind of discoloration, but you can see lots of hair detail. That is a nice, great first find for the board. Still the same roll. We found a bunch of nice-looking 1998s, but we're also finding some old stuff. So here's another one. Will it be in the 50s? This time, no, it's a 1964. We've got our first 1985. This is the blunt 5. You can see by the end of this 5 is pretty much straight up and down. We want to find the acute or the pointed 5 that has a very acute angle on the end of that 5 there. That's the rare one. I found one before. You can find it. I'll put a link up top and in the video description below for you to find that video where I found a 1985 pointed 5. A really cool find. We're going to find some more here still in roll number 1, and this is another 1964. So this is very interesting. We found a bunch of copper, of course, as we would expect, and a couple of oldies here, but the newer stuff were all 1998s and 1997s, so nothing newer than 1998. Makes me wonder, it's possible that we might have some older rolls, basically somebody who put their pennies into a piggy jar or piggy bank up until 1998 and then rolled them up, or they've been rolled for a long time. Who knows? We're going to find out and see. That might bode well for us to find some older stuff. If this is all 1998 and earlier, we're going to find a lot of copper. Maybe we'll find some really cool old stuff. I pulled a 1976 out of here. These ones were really subject to some rotated dies. I'll try to see if I can find the best way to show you this. What I'm going to try to do is just flip it straight up and down, and you can see that it's on a pretty significant tilt. So if I was to try to rotate it, it's just a little hard to do with one hand because I've got the camera in the other hand. But this coin has a bit of a rotation. If I was to try to rotate it on the axis, you can see the queen is tilted backwards. Not rare, not valuable, and certainly not in this condition, but there are some that are more dramatic. So if I found one where the queen was sideways, for instance, that would be a great find. This one is really only rotated about this much. If it was more dramatic, it would definitely be a keeper. Still in roll number 2, we've got a 65, and this is a year where there are 4 different varieties: a blunt 5, a pointed 5, a small bead, and a large bead in all the different combinations. So this 5 looks pretty pointy, but this is in fact the blunt 5. The pointed 5 is actually quite a bit more pointed. So we've got the blunt 5, but we can flip it over and take a look on the obverse. If we look over to Regina, to see if it's the small bead or the large bead. And the large bead, the A would be pointing directly to a large bead here. This is the small bead. The A is pointing between 2 small beads. So it's the small bead blunt 5, very common variety. And in this shape, not worth much more than to throw it in the copper cup. A little further back, we got our first blazer here, a really nice looking 1978, and I set all of these really brilliant uncirculated coins aside, and I'll add them to my rolls. So we'll set that aside, and I see right behind it, we've got a 1967. So of course, we want to check this one for that double-dyed obverse, where we can see doubling on the legend, and if we've got any doubling on the reverse, where we might see that on the date and Canada. So no doubling on the date or on Canada. So we'll flip it over and we want to see if we're going to see any doubling at all on DG Regina. And what we would see would be doubled serifs here, we'd see pretty significant doubling on some of the versions that we've seen before. And of course, I found 25 of them in a previous hunt. I'll put a link below to that hunt where you can see that. That was phenomenal. But this is a pretty nice looking 1967, at least on the reverse. But it's not 100%, so I don't know that I'm going to keep it. I'll set it aside for now. Hopefully we'll find some nicer ones. And we found our newest coin so far. This is a 1999. This is practically uncirculated. It looks really, really nice. I might set that aside. It's not particularly valuable, but it is in gorgeous condition. So I'm thinking these rolls might have been intact since 1999, early 99 perhaps. Just laid out roll number 3, and behind this shiny 1998, we know we've got a King George VI because we can see the Latin word for king, Rex, right there at the top. So we'll set it aside, and there is King George. And this coin actually has a fair amount of detail. If I can get it to focus, we can see a fair bit of detail still in his hair. So let's flip it over and see what we have. It is a 1947, our oldest coin of the hunt. That's a great find. So we have another 1965 here. We can see that it's the blunt 5, but this time when I flip it over and we check the legend, we can clearly see that this is the large bead. This A is pointing directly up to the top to a large bead, not between two small beads. So we found both the blunt 5 small bead and the blunt 5 large bead varieties, and we're only 3 rolls in, so that's really cool. Roll number 4, and we've got another King George VI. This time it is going to be a 1942. Roll number 6 is going to give us another find. Let's see what it is this time. It's a 1964. Just a little further back, we got another one. It is going to be, this time it's a 62. And we'll just put it under the scope. There are a few things we can check for. There is the 1962 guitar or harp variety, and it appears like there are strings coming down from the one. We don't see that here. And again, if we look at the date, there's also that die clash of the Queen's chin that appears to make the last number in the date hang, and that we don't have that either. Roll number 7, and I'm scoping a lot of these coins here because I'm looking, of course, as you know, for some of these minor varieties. This is the double 7/8. I'll just kind of give it a bit of a rotation. We can see the die deterioration on this has caused the base of the 7 and the base of the 8 to show some kind of doubling. This one's not too significant, and we've seen some really, really significant ones, particularly on the 1979s. But I typically scope my 68s, 69s, 70s, 78s, and 79s because they exhibit this the most. I've found it on a couple of 76s as well. Roll number 10 is going to give us a find. Let's see what this one is. This time it is a 1964. And same roll just a little further back. We're going to find another one here, another 64. So we've just finished the first 10 rolls. The first bundle is down. Interestingly, we didn't find any American pennies, and I said at the outset that we probably would find a bunch. That's uncharacteristic. I've just rolled out roll number 11 from this second bundle here, and I can see some American edges. So it's possible I got this bundle from a different bank pickup. As you know, pennies are hard to come by, so sometimes I just get 1 or 2 or 3 rolls. Sometimes I'll get more than that. And I put them together 20 at a time for a hunt. But I'm bringing you in right now because I've just pulled up a 1967, and we're going to find some doubling on this one. Just going to pull it up so you can see the date. It's going to be a little hard to see on here. There is doubling at the base of most of these letters and numbers. I might have to rotate it to really get a good view. It's harder to see under the camera, but there is doubling at the base of each of these letters and numbers. It's very faint, and this could be some, not the hub doubling. Well, you can see it really on the 7 there. So there's a rotated hub doubling on this coin. There may also be versions that have die deterioration as well, like we see on like the 78s and 79s. We're also checking the legend on the obverse to see if there's any doubling, and I don't see any there. So it's not the DDO that's recognized by PCGS, but we do have some doubling. In this condition, it's really hard to see on the 1967. We've certainly found much better versions of this though. Here's a really nice copper cent, a 1974, and then right behind it is our first American cent. It's just going to be a Lincoln Memorial cent. It's a 1970D. Still got a bit of red on it there, and that's a copper US cent. Same roll, we're going to have a first-year Lincoln Memorial. It is a 1959 out of Denver. That's a good find. And then right behind it, I see we've got a 1963 that's still got some luster on it. That's really cool. And behind it, a 1962, and then another laureate portrait, 1964. So I'm hoping this bundle is going to give us some really cool finds then. There might be some older stuff in here. And we actually have found something cool. I put this 1963 under the scope, and we can see that it is the hanging 3. We can see the die clash from the Queen's chin on the obverse. Here, if I rotate it, you'll see that there's just an angle that gets a little bit more clear on. Here we go. You can really see it. And in fact, this might be the double hanging 2. I can see 2 lines coming from the 3. So sometimes these dies clashed more than once. And so left multiple impressions on the opposite die. In this case, this might be, I think this is, the double hanging 3. And this roll is looking good because look what we found here. It's another older Lincoln cent. This time it's a wheat cent. It's a 1946, so our first wheat cent of the hunt. Hopefully we've got more. Very next coin is going to be a 1962 with some environmental damage. And then another shiny looking Lincoln Memorial. It is a 1987. So this is actually a zinc cent. This is not copper. It was 1982 was when they transitioned from copper to zinc core coins. Just a little further back, a gorgeous looking 1972 to add to our finds. Still in the same roll, we got another Elizabeth. This time, it's another 62. Same roll, we got another one here. Let's see what we got. This time, it's another 62. And we're going to have another wheat cent. Here we go, just peeking out the reverse. This one is a 1958 Denver last year wheat cent, and then right behind it I see we've got a nice shiny Canadian copper cent, a couple of them maybe. This is a nice 1976, and then below it, it's got some toning and some damage on it. Another one, another 1976. What we're finding in here is some actually really nice looking Lincoln cents. This is a 1972. You can see it's a little bit off center. The rim is sort of thicker on the sort of the southwest than it is on the northeast. But a lot of great detail. These somewhat look like they're mostly uncirculated. This obviously has some toning on it. It's not completely red. So I'm not sure if this is somebody's collection or just really coins that have been sitting in a jar for a long time. Somebody finally rolled up and took to the bank. Roll 11. And we've got our first 1961 of the hunt. Getting towards the end of that roll, we've got a 64. Roll 13, and this is our 8th 1964 laureate portrait in this hunt so far. Make it 9. We've got a 1982 US here, and this was the transition year. Some of the coins were minted in copper and some were in zinc. This is the large date, it appears. The only way to know for sure which this is to weigh it on the scale and see if it's over 3 grams or about 2.5. The zinc would be about 2.5 and copper would be over 3. This one has the look of copper. I can sometimes tell on the field what it is, but we'll put it on the scale to find out for sure. And it's over 3, so that is a copper cent. I'll set it aside with our copper finds. I've got a 1970 under the scope, and this is going to be the 00. I don't find these quite as often as I find the 78s and 79s. And it's a little harder to tell with the naked eye, but as I rotate it around, the doubling, which appears very slightly at the base of the 0, and again, I can see it much better with the naked eye than I can on the camera here, but it persists even as I rotate it around, which means it's not simply a shadow. If it was a shadow at some angles, you wouldn't be able to see it, but this is the 00. It's really faint. It's not terribly valuable, but we'll set it aside. It's a cool find. We're still in roll number 13, and we're going to find ourselves another George VI. Right behind this shiny 77 Denver, we've got a George V, or George VI, pardon me, cent here. And we'll just flip it over to see what we got. It's a 1947. That's our second 47 of this hunt. And just a little bit behind it, we're going to find another 64. And just behind that 64, a really nice looking 1977. And I didn't see it right away, but right behind that 1977 is another wheat cent. This is our third of the hunt. This one is a 1957 Denver. Just open up roll number 14, and we're going to have an ender here. Got a laureate portrait. Let's see what this is. Okay, our ender is going to be a 64. And we'll have a couple finds early in this roll because there's a 63, but right behind it we see a really shiny Elizabeth. So there's a 63 laureate portrait we'll add to our finds. That's actually our first 1963 of the hunt, and then we'll see what we have here. A really nice looking 1977. I'll be rolling up all of these better examples of copper coins in my own collection. And we're going to have our next wheat cent here, our fourth wheat cent, I should say. It's pretty worn. It could be older, but it's really hard to know for sure. It's a 1956. A few coins back, we're going to have another one. Let's see what this one is. This is a 1946. I think that's an S. Let's take a peek. And actually, it's a 40, a 1940 San Francisco minted wheat cent. That's awesome. And yet another wheatie. It's another 1956 here. That is awesome. We don't usually find so many. This is our sixth wheat cent of the hunt. Awesome. And all in these last 4 rolls. Second last coin of the roll, and we're going to have a double 1969. There is doubling from that deteriorated die on all of the numbers. The 1, the 9, the 6, the 9. If we rotate it around, you can see it persists. It's actually pretty significant here. And so that's a pretty cool find. We don't always find it with doubling on all of the numbers. It seems to go from the last digit, or maybe the last 2, the last 3. So this is the double 1969. Pretty cool. Roll number 15, and we are going to have another incredible find. We have found a steel cent. This is, so it's a wheat cent. It's a 1943, and this is the second one I found. It's just incredible. I would never expect to see something like this in a Canadian roll of pennies. We'll scope that. It looks like there's a little bit of some damage maybe on the above the date, but let's get a closer look at that. That is incredible. Absolutely a 1943, and that is just an extremely cool find. Same roll, we're going to have another laureate portrait. It's a 1962. And this roll's not done yet. We got another one. Let's see what we got here. Another 62. Roll 16 is going to give us another 1964. Same roll, we've got a double 79. That's a cool one for sure. And in roll number 17, we've had so many older coins to look through, we haven't really had too many opportunities to find any of the more modern varieties. So here's a 2006. There's no mint mark, there's no P, but we can check to see if it's magnetic. If it is, and it's not, it would have been a good find. This one is pretty common. It is a zinc 2000C 2006 with no mint mark and no mint logo, or composition mark, I should say. We're into roll number 19 now. I see a lot of newer American edges here, but at the beginning of the roll, we've got a 1964 laureate portrait we'll add to our finds. Roll number 19 is going to give us at least one more find. We have another laureate portrait. It's a 1962. Roll number 20 is going to give us a really nice 1979, and I checked it. There's no doubling on the date on this one at all. But that's a nice one. We'll tube that one up for sure. Second last coin of roll number 20. This is our last find, I think, of the hunt. It's a 1978. Looks really nice. And when I scope it, we'll see that it is the double 78. I'll just give it a little bit of rotation. You can see the doubling at the base of the 7, and there's some doubling around the base of the 8. That's that die deterioration. So we have hunted another 20 rolls. I'll just get everything cleaned up here and we'll do a bit of a wrap up. Okay, that hunt is complete and it was a really good hunt. So here are our finds here. There's all the copper that we got. Most of it was copper, just one small cup of zinc and steel cents. There's our US copper. They're all stacked up. We got 30 something of those. And I just put in the back row sort of the best of the copper cents. I'll look through and just take the absolute best of those and put them in my rolls. We got some miscellaneous finds. We got that really great double 1969 doubling on all of the numbers. That 70 with the double on the 0. We got a few double 7/8. We got a double 1979. And then we got a 1967 there, the commemorative, with a slight bit of doubling on the date, but it's not in great shape. In terms of our other finds, we got 4 King George VI, a 42, a couple 47s, oh, actually 3, and 1 50s. That's a 1959 Queen Elizabeth II laureate portrait. And then in front here, we got 25 laureate portrait Queen Elizabeth from the 60s, all stacked up there. We see 13 of the 1964s. We got a couple 63s. I'm going to come back to that one. We got 9 62s and a 61. But coming back to that other 63, I've put it under the scope. We looked at it earlier, and I believed this was the double hanging 3. But as I'm looking at it, I think what we've got here is actually, this could be a triple or a quadruple hanging 3. I'll see if I can get closer. The closer I get, the fuzzier it might get. But we can see the hanging area here, the die clash. And I can see at least, I think at least 3 distinct lines, but it could be 4. And they sort of merge down here. It looks like more like 2 here. But as you can see on the chin, I can see a distinct line here, 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 and here. It could be as many as 4. So it could be a triple, I think at least a triple, but possibly a quadruple hanging 3, which is super cool. So, but I think in terms of super cool, we got some other great finds. We actually got 7 wheat cents, and I think that's my record for wheat cents in a single hunt. So we got that 43 steel cent. That's my second steel cent. I never thought I'd ever find 1, let alone 2. We got that 40S, a 46, a couple of 56s, that 57, and that 58D, which is just incredible. Oh, and that's a 57D, I should say. There's a mint mark on there. I couldn't quite see it. But that was just a great haul in Penny Roll Hunt. I really hope you enjoyed that hunt. If you did, please give it a like. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, Quadruple Hunter, please do that. I'd really appreciate it so you can find out when I've got new videos. I have new videos coming out all the time. Canadian coin roll hunts, scrap or junk silver purchases, and other miscellaneous videos that I hope you'll enjoy. I love sharing with you folks. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.